Pleasure of meeting Simon and getting to know him. And not only is he our guest, but he's also become a good friend. And he's introducing his book called On the Sixth Day, God Created Color.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you also to the Pomerantz family for allowing me to present my book this evening. So first, a bit about myself. Name, as you'll gather, is Simon Prais, and my back, oh sorry, they can't hear at the back there. You know what I'm saying anyway up there. So my background is an art college education from an artistic perspective, and then a master's degree in typography, which back some 30-something years ago I studied the problems of combining Hebrew and English typography, specifically in a siddur, and the outcome of that some 30 years later was the fact that the Koran Siddur in Hebrew and English switched the pages from the left to the right of English and Hebrew, and I was pleased at the time they sort of found my work and contacted me, and so that book as well is on the shelves here. Following that, my professional working career evolved from typesetting and design into what is called colour management. That is the colour control and colour communication, both assisting with manufacturers to communicate the correct colours for products, for quality control, for photographers, for checking the digital picture is the same colours on their computer screen as they print out, and a whole range of other things, as far as the likes of football, for example, UEFA, FIFA and Premier League football, where we work with them on the regulations for the legibility of the numbers on the backs of shirts and colour differences between the opposing teams. So with all that and many other aspects of colour management really affects every industry one can imagine. Well, everything you see, in fact, and it's accepted that 85% of anyone's choice is based on the colour of something. So, bringing all that together, my knowledge of colour, of my Jewish background, Torah knowledge, and colour and typography, putting it all together, I came up with my book, Gematria for Process, which is described as chromatic art of the Torah. So chromatic is the colour science part, art, and the Torah. And so we'll start off, in fact, with the name of the book, On the Sixth Day, God Created Colour. Do we have anyone in the audience who'd like to say what justification I have for such a statement? Apart from my daughter at the back. Anyone else? Prize for anyone who'd like to suggest? I've got them, it's okay. Okay. Oh, we have one contender here.
I mean, color is just the way we perceive an electromagnetic wave. So without humans, there's no color.
Perfect. Would you like to come and take over? Great. Okay.
No, I'm studying physics and optics at Machon Lev, so that's me.
Great. Okay. So when I explain this, we've got someone else in the audience who has already justified it. So color is a figment of our imagination. Colour requires three components to exist: a light source, an object for it to be reflected off or to absorb, and crucially a human observer. And if we look through the Torah, of course, man was not created till day 6. We had the light source before that, we had objects before that, but we didn't have a human being to observe it. And although, yes, animals and birds do see colour, they don't see it exactly the same way as a human does. Tests show even a monkey, which has the most similar retinas to a human, don't group colours the same way as us. Whereas the World Colour Survey shows that in languages all around the world, in undeveloped tribes as well, colours are all grouped within red, yellow, green, blue, and so on groupings. They all will have names for those, whereas within animals, they don't understand that grouping. So, hence the name, On the Sixth Day, God Created Colour. A further point on this, where this perfectly ties in science and Torah, is that grass was created on day 3. Esav was on day 3, and it is just called Esav. But then on day 6, after the creation of man, the following sentence, it refers to it as Yerek Esav, green grass. So that perfectly ties in. Why wasn't it called green grass on day 3? Because there was no human to observe it. Colour didn't exist. So now let's move on to my translation of the whole Torah into colour. So to achieve this, I took the following approach. The gematria of every word in the Torah, the lowest value to the highest value, the lowest value.
Look at the stars of Torah.
So, any better?
Closer.
Hello? Yeah, okay, we've got it.
Turn the speaker out. Speaker space.
Take it off and put it on your shoulder.
This, sorry, that might help. Okay.
No, so could you help straighten this?
Okay. So the smallest value word in the Torah in terms of gematria is the word av or ra, which both has a value of 3. The highest value word in the Torah is tiztareh, to rule over, which has a value of 1500. So we have a gematria scale of 3 to 1500. In terms of colour and light, we have this is quantified in terms of wave frequency. So just as light, when it shines and you create a rainbow, as mentioned just after Noah, it splits it into the wave frequencies. Red, yellow, Richard of York gave battle in vain, as it's known. And that wave frequency range is from about 400 terahertz to 800 terahertz. Above that and below that is infrared and ultraviolet, radio waves, X-rays and gamma rays and so on. So that is the small proportion which our eyes respond to and our brain interprets as colour. So in mapping the range of 3 to 1500 of the gematria scale to 400 to 800 of the terahertz scale, we then end up with a mapping of the colour, the words to colour values across the spectrum here. Now, unbelievably, in doing this, there's if we take the 4 primary colours. In fact, can I ask, who knows what the 4 primary colours are? I say 4. Some people know them as 3.
Red, yellow, green, blue?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So red, yellow, green, blue. Although in light terms, a computer monitor or screen works with red, green, blue. That is the colour science of wavelengths which mix to make white. But our brain interprets it as explained in the Herring law from the end of the 19th century. The brain interprets things in terms of blue, yellow or red, green pairs. It's known as the Herring opponent colour theory. And so those are the 4 colours, and in terms of the Torah, those are the Hebrew colour names Adon, Tzahov, Yarak and Tchelet. Unbelievably, the gematria of those results in Adon falling in the red zone, Tzahov in the yellow-orange, Yarak in the green and Tchelet in the blue. So we have this correlation there, and more so, green, as you can see here, it's falling towards the yellow end of the green. Although it is the yellow end of the green, unbelievably, that is the point that the eye has the greatest response to light. And so, if you can imagine, with the creation of the world and mankind, and the of colour, it's quite logical that the colour name, which is the greatest sensitivity and response from the human, would be the colour which is mentioned. And today, as we see colours, we refer to any colour which is from that green point down towards yellow, yellow and red, as we call that a warm colour, and anything in the other direction we call a cool colour. So that is how we mapped all this to create the Torah. So, having explained how we've achieved it, and here we have all 79,977 words of the Torah reproduced in colour. And if we start with, there's a number of ways we can look at this. If you just have that volume of words or colours, one's got to actually assess, is it achievable, and what was my goal at the time? So my goal was to actually, could I reproduce the whole Torah in colour so that it could all be seen in a single glance? And so the starting point from that was, firstly, would the computer applications handle such a number of colours in a workable form? And secondly, what is the smallest size I could make each colour so it could be seen, and would it be possible to see it all then? So within this, every square I knew had to be a minimum of between 2 and 3 millimetres square. With smaller than that, it would have been hard to actually interpret the individual colours. Additionally, within that, I knew that the optimum distance for viewing artwork and focusing without having to move your head is about 5 foot, 1.5 metres. And with your viewing angle, without needing to move your head, that relates as well to about a 30-degree angle, 60-degree angle, which results in about a 1.5 or 1.4 metre width. So, having put all that together, it all fitted perfectly, and it resulted in these proportions here. This then gave me inspiration for how to complete the work. So the ratio of this, based on this width and the size, ends up as a ratio of 2.5 by 1.5, which happens to match the proportions of the Aron in the tabernacle. Hence, I put a frame around it, which was wood inlaid with gold and the 4 golden rings to mirror the tabernacle, the ark in the tabernacle. In fact, likewise there on this side, not the long side, because on the long side it was actually the altar which had the rings on there, and the ark itself had on the short side. So this was a perfect match. I then had a bit of flexibility in the scaling, and I thought, well, my main artwork I'm going to print out on a rigid board and needs to be transportable. The back of the car, the width, and both mine, my business partners and my wife's car all indicated it needed to be a maximum height of just under 90 centimetres, just under a metre. I produced it like that, and I then thought, I wonder how this 2.5 by 1.5 ratio matches to the actual size of the ark. I googled what a cubit is, and it is an identical match. So what that means, looking at it from the other direction, is when the high priest was looking at the Aron, he could have stood there and he would have seen taken it all in one go without needing to move his head, which I doubt anyone else has ever considered it from that way, because when we start looking at things in terms of art and colour, you find things which normally you would never have discovered. So that is how this came about to be this size, and then we look at the style of it. Now the style of it is something which actually took me near enough 8 years. So I created the whole Torah in colour squares 8 years ago and thought, wow, I've achieved what I wanted to do. But everyone says, yes, but it's not a nice picture to hang on the wall. And I created about 100 or so different images of sections of the Torah, and I was always struggling with this one until I went back to the fact of what do I want to do here, and I realised I wanted to communicate that this is the Torah, which direction it goes, and that it is international. So the style of how it is here, we have the 5 books, and we can see they're each denoted with the style of like a drop capital letter in the top corner of each book, which straight away indicates this reads the Hebrew direction from right to left. So it's giving that message. The style of a drop capital is very much an Ashkenazi style, a Germanic style of print work. And then to finish it off, because I didn't want a half-used line at the end of each one, just like with a legal document, you have to finish it properly. There I took the Sephardi style of centering the end lines to make it end evenly as well. So we've got an Ashkenazi Sephardi style communicating the direction it is read and the order of it, and the fact that it's 5 columns is another clue that it is the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. So that is the story behind this. Okay, we can now move on from this. So we've talked about the colours red, yellow, green and blue, and in fact this is how children start as well, with their colours. So what's the next thing a child does when after they're allowed to do something more exciting than just play with blocks? It's paint. And the natural thing to do with paint is to mix it together and you get a yucky dark green colour. Yeah? Okay. Not yucky. Right. So that leads us on to my next work. Before we look at the actual work, I'll just show you how it started, which is in the book. So the work started like this, as a square of green, which was created from mixing and creating an average of every colour word in the Torah, and a peg, which was just showing the volume of each book. So then, when looking at the Torah in terms of colour, it's a totally different concept of how we can see things. And the thing which became evident here is that the names of the books here are all in the order of a spectrum, going down from the highest down, but the fifth book is actually out of place. From a colour perspective, it should be somewhere up there. However, the fifth book looks very close to the colour of the average of everything. So this gave the inspiration behind the next work we're talking about now, which I call the law of averages. So what we have here is the colour of the 5 books and the average colour which is coming through it all. Now, having looked back then at the actual numbers in the gematria, because from the inspiration of the colours showing that they were similar, it became evident that, well, in fact, let's start with a question. Can anyone like to explain how the fifth book is described in relation to the first 4 books of the Torah? The summary, yes, correct, a summary, yes. So what we have here, the volume, or the word Hadavarim, the name of the book, is the same colour value as a summary of all the colours of the words mixed together. And so in this artwork here, we have showing the mixing of the colours and the fact that they all flow into merge as the summary of the last one. And if you look at it in numeric terms, one finds that the average, the number value of the average of every word in the first 4 books of the Torah compared to the word Hadavarim matches within 0.04% of a perfect match. Whereas if you mix all 5 words in all 5 books, it's not so good. It is only 0.05, and if you look at any other combination, it's not so good. The closest to perfect match is the first 4 books. Now, another aspect of this, so that is what inspired this, and also you'll note here that I've switched from going right to left to it flowing down. Creatively, this to me worked well, and looking at it like that, we'll just jump back a step now, and if we look back at this here, I would say what part of this jumps out at people as being, I wonder what that part is. The blue line, exactly. So that is created by the high value of the word mishpachtim and mishpachtom, relating to the families having the land of Israel divided between them. So it's all...
No, I don't see it that way.
No?
No, I see,
You're
I'm a
picking up that
person
bit.
whose favourite colour is turquoise, right.
Right,
That's what I
okay.
see.
Yeah, that's normally the second thing people will pick up on.
Okay.
This is normally the first. It could be the way the light is shining as well, but that is all to do with the contents of the tabernacle being constructed. Nechoshet and other words, which are a turquoise colour. Whereas this here is all about land, and if we think about it, the whole Torah story can be seen in terms of land, the creation of Gan Eden, the flooding, Abram leaving his homeland, and so on, Egypt and the journey to Israel. And so land seems quite appropriate to be here. And so then jumping back to this here, with it working this way, it actually represents a landscape. If I can explain what I mean here, if we look at a work I did earlier before I changed my name. If we compare the colours here, a landscape colours is the same. You've got blue through greens to ochres. So likewise, if we look at an earlier piece such as a Renaissance Gainsborough piece, again we've got the same colour, and you look at any landscape painter from any period in art and it follows through. So that, that more than anything else contributes towards why I feel that works as a very pleasing image, but it also has a relevance as well. Okay. What have we got next? Yes, okay, we'll now start from the, let's ask the question. We have a disc here with 7 steps in it. Any ideas what this may represent?
7 species? Maybe it's
Creation, correct, yes, right.
creation.
I forgot to give you a bookmark when you answered your question at the back earlier.
Yeah.
I'll give you one at the end.
Change it for one.
Yes, okay, come to me at the end and I'll dish them all out. So yes, here we have the 7 days of creation spiralling round. Now, what we have here is, you may feel that this sort of bolt of energy coming through it in red, yellow, green and blue is just artistic license putting that in there to say this is a zap of power and it spins round. But in fact, let's ask this question then. The first 4 words of the Torah, Bereshit bara Elokim et. Anyone comment on the word et, on what is how the word et is explained in the Torah there?
Aleph to Tav.
Aleph to Tav, correct, the alphabet. So it is said that at the beginning of creation, before light, the Aleph to Tav, the whole alphabet was created first, and in turn the Torah before creation. So the building blocks of the written Torah, Aleph Bet, were created first in the first 4 words of the Torah. The red, green, blue building blocks of the Gematria Torah actually are represented with those 4 words. So Bereshit bara Elokim et end up as being blue, yellow, red, green. So that's not artistic license putting it in, it actually is how it calculates. And then working all the way round to the end of day 6 or day 7, because there's also discussion, was the world created in 6 days and Shabbat was a rest day, or was Shabbat part of creation? Well, the last 4 words of the end of Shabbat also end up as being red, yellow, green and blue. So that suggests that the answer to the question of how many days is actually 7 days, because we start and end with the red, green, blue building blocks of the Torah. So that's they're looking at a story within the Torah, the story of creation. And now I'll give your arms a rest for a second. And while I just say we're now going to move on to an individual.
What inspired the dots and the darkness?
Okay, so that actually evolved from another piece. So an earlier piece of work, another piece of work I've got, which is purely about day 1, the creation of light. I have an image which is dots. It's the creation of light. Initially is not considered the light of the sun and the moon, and it's not quite aligned, and so that is evolved from there. It's from another image.
And the grey and black.
And that's as well. It's just sort of a hole, a black hole. Yes. Yeah. Okay. We'll now move on to just picking up on a small pasuk. We'll go. I went through all the mitzvot, pulling out which mitzvot were appropriate to and had enough sort of interest to produce as artwork. And yes, no, you're back on now. And so, any suggestions on this?
My favorite.
Okay, red and blue. Obviously, the main colours in this. What do we normally look at in terms of red and blue?
Meat and milk.
Meat and milk, exactly. Yes.
He's cheating, he's got the book.
Yes. Yes. So here, yes. So here we have the mitzvah, the law of keeping kashrut, separating meat and milk, and so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words there. La, tavashel, gedei, b'chalev. Yeah. Good, thank you. And initially, when I did this work, I did it and I based the thickness of each band based on the number of letters in each word it was representing, which was one approach I had been using in the artwork. But as an artist, I have the choice to sort of break the rules that I created occasionally. And when I originally created like that, a professor at Bar-Ilan University laughed and said, "But it's treif, you've got blue and red mixed together." So I then redesigned it and made sure there was less than a 60th of blue in the red one and less than a 60th of red in the blue one.
Right.
And if one can see as well, the red one here is actually pushed off to the side, like it's not quite perfect, and is a different style to the blue one. Any suggestions why, from a Torah aspect, I would have made this style here, made it a bit more sort of like not perfect?
The different animals maybe, or the different...
No. So this here is geometrically drawn like on purpose, and it's still forbidden. If you put 60th in on purpose, it's still not considered acceptable. Whereas if it's accidental, can we put that, hold it up a bit more, sorry. If it's accidental, it is allowed. So there's quite a lot built into these as well, driven the design of it based on Torah law. Okay. I'll give you a rest for a minute. Right. Just an aspect to go back to the beginning as a break for my wife's arms there. Of course, the other question is why colour? So just to mention that colour is the fastest means of communication. If it's an individual colour, like the red and green stop and go at a traffic light, or red and blue, as we've mentioned here, for distinguishing meat and milk, or hot and cold, colour is far quicker than a word or listening. Likewise, if you have mass data to look at, it is also far more efficient. So if you think of a map, you have the topography of the world or of a country. It is all denoted by colour. If it was all numbers saying the level, all year trying to work out if what is where, whereas I think you can quite easily see in a map of Israel that Yerushalayim and the Ramon crater, for example, are at similar levels. So that is another reason why looking at a Torah this way has a practical reason as well. It is definitely not just a fun approach. And any ideas, well, we've got a scientist here, how much quicker light travels for you to see than the speed of sound? Any idea?
Many.
It's 1 million times. Yes. More so, if you shouted from heaven, you wouldn't hear anything because it requires the atmosphere to travel. Sound waves require the Earth's atmosphere to travel through, whereas light waves don't. So a light in heaven would reach Earth, and 1 million times quicker, although sound wouldn't. Which actually ties in very nicely with one of my favourite pet hates, when every year you get this, at Shavuos time, you get the amazing, wonderful story about how could Kol ha'am ro'im et ha'klalot, how could you see the thunderings? Well, apart from the fact that actually sound is the effect of the energy of the light anyway, which the two are together, it ties in beautifully with the fact that it says that Hashem came down to earth, because you wouldn't be able to hear if Hashem was in heaven. And so the whole thing actually justifies it all without any questions of did it mean see or hear. So it all falls in very nicely. Okay, we'll move on to the next image now. So here we have an individual sedra. I've done 54 of these, each one for each of the sedrot, and each line is a word. The length of the line represents the number of letters in the word, and the longest sedra, which is Nassau, fills the whole jar. And so from this you can quite easily see nice present for bar mitzvah and things. You can see how long your sedra is compared to the longest. You can see how many long words you've got compared to short words. You can see how many sentences might be repetitive. So when you think about Masor, which is the longest sedra, one then notices, as in the book you'll see, it's actually 50% is repetition. And so it's actually not that much of an issue. In fact, we can even see that repetition here. Can you notice this repetitive pattern here? That is the repetition of the gifts given by the tribes to the dedication of the temple, the tabernacle. And in fact, that pattern there I've actually used in the inside of the book as the end papers, and also made gift wrap out of it to connection to the gifts for the tabernacle. So that is the basis of this image here, and I placed it in a shape representing the jars of the Dead Sea Scrolls, as that is considered one of the oldest physical copies of the Torah as it is. And the top of each jar is the colour of the book that it is in, and the Sedra name is indicated by the top of the scroll. And so these are called jars of light, and as well as having individual ones for each Sedra, I have a composite which shows the whole thing as a continuous scale of them.
In the book.
In the book.
Definitely.
Okay. Now this one here is a work based on an artwork. So this started off as again it's in the book, a series of 15 panels which are individual canvases that are each about 3 meters high, which are in my shul in Birmingham, and
Birmingham, UK.
so yes, yes, and this very much started off with the fact that the space they worked around the space they had to fit in, which based on the proportions of the space resulted in me needing to come up with something which was 15 of it. So if no one has seen what it's, no, it doesn't know. So what are the 15 of? Apart from, yes. Apart from Dayanis, I was going to say, but Shir HaMalot, right? You get 2 bookmarks now, a bit like on a card. Yes. So this is the 15 songs of ascent. Any suggestions on whether this one reads from left to right or right to left? Oh, in fact, hands up if you think it reads from left to right first. Okay, we've got a few, and right to left. We have a few more, and a few abstaining here. Obviously very confused.
Don't want to get it wrong.
In fact, it's meant to be confusing on purpose because of the fact that it's called the Songs of Ascent, but one description is the fact that it is when the Kohen Gadol descended the steps, whereas the other thing is ascending up to Yerushalayim on the Chagrim. So, and also to do with the water levels dropping, not rising, during the building of the temple. So all of these different things are built into, firstly, the confusion I wanted to have in, is it going up or down? And then if we just take the concept of going up the hills of Jerusalem, would you then say it should flow right to left or left to right? Wrong, let me explain why. If you're going up a hill, the closer to the top of the hill you get, the less you see of it. Yeah. So they do go from here to here, and if you're even going up to Yerushalayim, you would be seeing less and less of what is ahead of you. And we'll also notice here that the lines here are quite wavy and they become straight. The idea there was, as they were singing the Psalms on the way to Yerushalayim, getting closer to Hashem, and so it's a more direct path of the message going up there. And we have the 15 steps which led up in the temple to the gate of Nicanor, which is where the Levim were said to sing these psalms. Also the message of going up to Jerusalem. And I was quite pleased when someone suggested it looked like an underwater scene, because that as well relates to the water levels as well. So that image there was developed based on the canvases hanging on the wall. Okay, I think at this point we will open it up for any questions.
I just have Could you rate your speaker?
Sorry?
Could you speak just briefly about your other book?
Which is the other book?
I don't know the that they have here.
That is this
Oh,
one.
this
That is the book, yes.
This
That is the book.
Okay, I thought you
Although
were too.
you have just prompted me, although this other book isn't a book for sale, it's a work of art. One other aspect of working in colour rather than words is that a book can be totally different. And so this book is actually empty, apart from this, which is for reference for myself, but to all intents and purposes it's an empty book, and we have the whole Torah line for line in the margins. So if we take the book, I call it the scroll book because you don't need to open it, you turn it this way and you see the 5 books, and you turn it this way and you get the whole Torah. So this is what I call my scroll. These are a limited work of art as opposed to an off-the-shelf book. Yes. Any other questions?
Could you just explain again, we're talking about the frequency for the number of words from 2 to 1500?
Yep.
And how that squeezed into the spectrum of the colors?
Okay, so it is based on a linear algorithm. The actual numbers, if you would like, are... I should say that in the book, you get the book and you'll see. But, the actual numbers are here. Yeah, it is take the gematria value, multiply by 0.2142 and add 467.7. But it is what's called a linear mapping, so for the scientists in here, the back of a book is the scientific justification of everything, whereas the front of a book is a more simplistic explanation, but we end up based on a straight line mapping with all the other colours falling in place.
Simon, I've got a question. This is all about colour you've talked about, but of course when we look at perceiving things we also look at lightness and dark. So what's the implication of black and white and black and dark on this?
Okay, yes, good point. Yes, as you'll see in here, it's not just a pure bright red, yellow, green and blue. There's actually light and dark tones. So when I first started on this work, I realised that it would be quite limiting and boring because within the straight line, within the pure colours, you've got quite a limited range of colours the eye will see. And also from an imagery perspective, they would all look like flat images. Artwork has depth to it. And in fact, to link to that, Betzalel, the artist or architect of the temple, Betzalel means in the shadow of Hashem. And shadow is what you get, light and dark, and that makes artwork. So how I struggled initially thinking, how am I going to add depth in it without just randomly making things light and dark? And I looked at the words and I thought, what else could I add? What's in a word that's unique to differentiate one word from another? And apart from the number of letters, which I was using anyway for the size of a bar of colour, the only other thing is the fact that letters in the Torah have crowns on them. Certain letters have a 3-prong crown and other letters a single-prong crown. So what I did there, if I just take my book and take off the cover, is easier to explain it. So inside the book, so you get a poster as well, good value for money here. Here we have, so for every colour you can have a colour going from the pure colour, it can be going darker or it can be closer to a neutral grey. And to determine that, I sort of calculated that if I use the 3-prong tag-in crowns to determine how saturated a colour is, and the single-pronged crowns to determine how neutral the colour is, I could then add the most variety of depth to the image. Now, unbelievably, in doing that, and this explains why I'm wearing this tie in Israel, this is actually my Shatner's tie. The reason it's my Shatner's tie is as follows. So what happens when we mix red, green and blue light together? We get what?
Brown.
No, white, exactly, white. So white is the result of mixing colours together. Shatner's is a forbidden mixing. With the choice I made of how to apply the tone to all of the colours, it ends up with the word Shatner's ending up as white.
Wow.
So that actually ties into the fact that ties in, sorry. to the meaning of it as well. And having done that, I thought, well, yes, white is the result based on my calculation of every letter in a word having a 3-pronged crown in it, which is the word Shatner's. I thought, I wonder what word ends up as being black, as in having a letter with just a single pronged crown on everything. And just like Shatner's is unique in the fact that only one word in the Torah ends up as white, there's only one word in the Torah which ends up as black, and that is lahavdil, to separate. So within this we have spiritually separate, as in separating heaven and earth, lahavdil, ending up as black, spiritually mixing, Shatner's ending up as white, and so we have this whole 3-dimensional colour space all linked back to coincidences in the Torah, and that as well is all explained in there.
Simon, can I ask?
Yep.
Color blindness, is it at all mentioned, or have you come across it in any of the Mefoshim?
Well, colour blindness it's represented in the cover of my book, in fact, purely because what I have done here is, as we go round, this is actually the day 6 creation image, or section of it, and before cattle were created, the colours are in monochrome, based on how some birds see colour. Then cattle are actually colourblind, similar to humans, and they would see this as the colours, and so I've represented it here. That as far, so yes, someone who's colourblind would struggle with this, just like someone who was blind would struggle with reading the Torah. So I mean, there's nothing perfect which covers everyone.
They wouldn't struggle. It wouldn't be possible for them. It wouldn't be possible for them. It wouldn't be a struggle. It wouldn't be possible.
They would still appreciate it as artwork, but the ability to interpret it. So I mean, one question which hasn't been asked yet is it reversible, the process? As in, if you see the colours, can you interpret what the words are? And the answer to that is, if your eyes were sufficiently tuned to differentiate subtle colour differences, it is no different to what the Kohen Gadol would do when interpreting the Urim and Tumim, because the only words predominantly which end up as the same are anagrams of each other, and that is the same challenge that the Kohen Gadol had. And everyday language, even, a word can mean multiple things, and it's just in the context that you know what it means. So it is possible that when a prophet receives a message, it could have been that a prophet actually saw colour, because it's always linked to like light and colour, the burning bush, or the rainbow obviously was the first message from Hashem, and so there was light at the Matan Torah. So who knows? I'm not sort of saying that is what happened, but there is if you wanted to transmit something long distance, light is definitely far quicker, more efficient than sound.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the very first question, so I apologise if I'm asking the same thing. How does it relate to the Pantone array of colours?
Oh, we're doing some advertising for Pantone. Thank you, David. Okay, so a brief explanation here. If anyone's familiar with a Pantone colour range, which is a guidebook used for graphic designers to communicate colour between each other, that is a man-made colour scale, and it evolved over time as they introduced new mixes of colours to communicate. Whereas what is more relevant is actually other international colour guides. So there's a company called RAL, which is a German international standard. There is the NCS colour range, and there's also the Munsell colour range. Those are all created based on human perception. And just like in the inside of my book here, this represents the frequency of every word in the Torah and which colours are used. We see this triangular shape forming of which tones are and aren't printed. This is exactly how a man-made colour guide based on colour perception evolves as well. So if one gets any man-made guide, international accepted guide, for each colour hue, it ends up with a triangular form going towards shadows and neutral colours. So the Torah does also match that. Question?
What do you think is the most effective color combination? I know some Broadway designers that love to design in red, yellow, black, because no matter where you see it in the city, it's the most eye-catching, but what do you prefer?
It totally depends on what you're trying to communicate. If it's cheap, low-end, or high-end, exclusive. I mean, one guide generally is if you're doing a pair of colours, you choose colours which are opposite to each other in the colour wheel. So opposite blue is yellow and red is green, but you don't choose a colour which has the same brightness level. You would always choose one to be slightly brighter, duller, more neutral, to give a good contrast in there.
I just want to say one thing. I'm a Chinese medical practitioner. I don't know if you've ever studied Chinese theory. But this is something called the Bagua.
Right.
All of the universe and all of every explanation of everything, including emotions, directions, colors, seasons, temperatures, is included in the Bagua. And your design here has some element, if you look at the yin yang.
Right.
Okay. And it's all, it has to do with the broken line or the straight line having, it's all a similar kind of theory.
Similar, yes,
I think
to
you would
colour,
find it
yes.
fascinating.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Oh, the rest of it.
One more, yes.
Oh, yes.
No, it's not directly related to the artwork, but more in like to, I guess, like color in Tanakh in general.
Yep.
You know, like I noticed that like that, you know, from what I understand in general, the first color division that society developed was between black and white. But in Tanakh, it seems that many times the fundamental distinction is between like is between white and red. Do you have like any insight as to why that is?
No idea, sorry. I can't even say the answers in the book because it isn't.
That's your next project.
Volume 2.
It's his next project, yeah.
Okay, so thank you all for coming. And if anyone would like the book to read up on, I've shown you here one small slice of what is in there. A few samples of the artwork. There's a whole range against each of these, all with equally fascinating descriptions and explanations on them. And I'm sure Sam will sort you out with the book, and if anyone wants some signing, I'm available for signing. And if I promised anyone a bookmark or a postcard for asking a question, please come and see me.
Thank you very much.
Right. Sorry, I didn't realise it was. Sorry, I thought it followed.